Well, I don't want to be that guy, but I don't really think he's invincible. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do mean to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, I've been a solid Saiyan fan for literally years now. Like, I remember when this man was below 100k. I think he's at nearly 500k now, like multiple. Like I was there as he started releasing some of these early series that he's now remastering. Like, I've been subscribed to this man for forever, and I've been subscribed to his second channel for forever, but I haven't really talked about him. I loosely reference him sometimes in my own videos, but I did want to branch out a little bit. And when I saw this wonderful legendary video of Invincible versus Dragon Ball, especially with the Dragon Ball Super manga coming back, I believe either this month or next month. Obviously, Dragon Ball is going to be coming back to the channel in a slightly major way. And honestly, I wouldn't even be mad if I took one of his new what ifs, because I know he's working on new ones. Especially now that his Fusion one just ended. So I'm assuming that he's probably going to start a new one. Depending on how this video does, I wouldn't mind doing some reaction to some Sound Sane content. Bit by bit, piece by piece, and then what ifs come out. I do a full story, but I don't want to be here for 10 hours. Even I have a limit to my yapping. But with that being the case, the link to Solid Sane's channel, or his side channel, I literally forget the name of the channel. I forget the name of the channel, but this is not his main channel. The main channel is exclusively what ifs for the most part, and like occasional theory or discussion videos. But whatever. The link to the channel will be in the description down below, along with the link to the original video. Obviously, this video is 16 minutes and 49 seconds. I promise you I will be here for longer than that. And we're going to talk about Invincible versus Dragon Ball. Mark. Do you know why I got these scars? Okay, let me stop. But with that being the case, before we hop into it, let me tell you how far I think Mark gets. Now, notably, there are going to be massive spoilers for the Invincible series. So if you do not want to be spoiled because you are currently watching the animated version and have heard nothing of the comics, then please run away. I don't want to spoil anybody. I'm assuming yesterday spoiled too, because if we just go by what's currently animated of Mark, like no season 3 or anything, that man may struggle to get past Dragon Ball. Like, I'm not sure he beats Full Power Roshi. Any character above that. And there are a couple characters in Dragon Ball above that. But with that being the case, with those people who are gone, or those who don't care, I don't blame you, because I didn't care. I still didn't read no comics, but I know the scaling just a little bit. Unless we're talking about a hypothetical Super Prime end of his, or leader of the Viltrum Empire, end of series Mark, who's been alive for like thousands upon thousands of years, Mark struggles to hit planetary, as far as I know. I know notably, there are like 2 different versions of Invincible scaling. There's the crossover version of the scaling, where you take all of his crossover thing. Like, it really depends. Mark has like 2 sides. He has the side of him where you just take his own universe, which I'll get to in a second. But then you do have the crossover scaling where he fights like Spawn, or he fights alongside Spawn, there's like an alternative Mark that killed a version of Spawn. Now, obviously, not all characters are the same character. There are a bunch of different versions of Spawn. Leslie, there's no, like, that Spawn could have been human level, for all we know. Like, legit, that's the beauty of different characters. But I forget, there was some statement about it that's like, that Spawn was in all equal ways to the main Spawn you commonly think of when everything was Spawn. And then, like, people use that to get Mark to, like, the crazy level that Spawn gets to. And there are some crazy levels that Spawn gets to. And then there was the other one, the other crossover Omni-Man had with somebody. He had with some, like, there was an Omni-Man crossover. I forget who it was with. But essentially, it was something that, like, got him, and by proxy Mark, who scales the Omni-Man, obviously, to, like, multi-solar system level. Or, like, even there's some highball that's all for Universal and stuff, based on that crossover, but I forget what the crossover was for. I haven't reviewed my Invincible scaling in a little bit. Why did I click on this video without reviewing that? But in universe, the best physical feat we see from Mark, and the best physical feat we see from just like the verse, in terms of like what happens on panel, is the destruction of Viltrum. The only thing is, though, Mark didn't destroy Viltrum by himself. Far from it, in fact. Mark didn't destroy Viltrum by himself. He didn't just destroy it with his dad. He didn't just destroy it with Thaddeus. He destroyed it with himself, his dad, Thaddeus, and a shot from Space Racer's super weapon to destabilize the core of the planet. And even then, they would have died in the explosion if they did it even slightly wrong. So clearly, like, I'm always hesitant to even put Mark at planetary based on that alone, because there's no other feat that surpasses that. The final major battle of the series takes place on a star. And of course, pretty cool, but they don't destroy the star, they don't even damage it. They literally nearly die on there because they can barely handle being on the star. So, like, there's nothing else, but there are some there, but that's like the low end version of the ceiling where like Mark's at best moon level because he has to split up this pseudo planetary feat. There is ways to still get like the destruction of Viltrum much higher, because I believe there's like, I forget what the external statement is, like apparently Viltrum, like planet Vegeta, has much higher gravity than Earth. And like if you calc how much the gravity increase would be relative to Earth, despite the two planets having a similar size and similar humanoid structures, then technically Viltrum was like 10 or 20 times more durable than Earth. So even if they had to destabilize the core and triple team it, technically the destruction of that planet would be a lot more intense than the destruction of something like Earth. And thusly you can still get that higher to like planetary or even large planetary. I've seen some calcs that get like dwarf star if you go with like the higher end interpretations of it having like super high gravity, because like how Frieza's destruction of planet Vegeta, despite it just being a planet that has 10 times Earth gravity, and obviously 10 Earth is nowhere near star level or dwarf star level. When everyone knows that First Form Frieza is dwarf star level based on the scale of the explosion that's shown in the anime. I specifically say the anime because the manga I don't think has that panel. I haven't reread Dragon Ball in a while. But all that being the case, if you put Mark there, he's in that like possibly moon level, possibly dwarf star level at peak, interpreting the destruction of Viltrum at its best. And while he does get massively stronger, we never really get any solid multipliers to assume he's like super uber juber strong. So like that's a solid range, but at its lowest, it's struggling to clear Dragon Ball, and at its highest, it's not getting past the Namek Saga. But he does clear all the Saiyan Saga up to that point. And another main reason he clears is because of his speed scaling. Now, Invincible speed scaling is kind of funky, and not even in the sense that it's kind of funky where like, oh, it's all whack, it's all booty, it's all, but no, it's kind of funky because like there's hot debate on whether or not characters actually scale with their combat speeds, or no, actually scale to their travel speeds. But we know they do, or at least I'm in the camp that they do, and obviously Nolan has the feat of traversing the universe on 1 week of breath, or 1 week of breath, or 1 week of holding his breath, and he literally travels to another star system, and that feat is calculated into the many times faster than light range, and that's a Nolan who's presumably not going at full power. And of course, we know that Alan the Alien, who traverses galaxies, can fight at those same travel speeds as he crosses those galaxies. And obviously characters like Mark and Omni-Man are relative, if not superior, to that original like starter series Alan, who goes on to get many more buffs after he gets torn apart by the Ultramites. So like there's definitely a massive speed gap. And that would even allow like a Mark level character to, even if you go to he's only moon level, if he hits with his moon level attacks Raditz, for example, 1,000 times over before Raditz can even throw a punch, and Raditz never hits him. Because Raditz, there are definitely ways to get Raditz to MFTL, but like, kind of scummy. They're kind of scummy. Like, you can do it. You can do it. Like, you have to upscale massively from the Piccolo beam and just go with, like, the times Piccolo gets blitzed viciously by Raditz. Or you have to go with, like, the Dragon Ball stuff where, like, there's feats in the anime specifically. I don't think they're in the manga. Or no, it's the interpretation of, like, oh, Goku blitzed light because he blitzed the solar flare. So, like, there are definitely ways to get Dragon Ball up there. But a lot of people kind of are like, you don't really get to the insane numbers of massively faster than light until, like, Namek Saga for Dragon Ball. So even in, like, a very low-end interpretation of Mark can definitely get run through a lot of the Saiyan Saga, but he does struggle very highly at Namek, especially once he gets to any character on Frieza level. And I'm talking like First Form Frieza level, because Frieza's really, really bulky, and it's not like the supernova he did to destroy Planet Vegeta actually took a whole lot of effort. It was only a portion of his full power. So that's where that Mark would kind of stop and end up. On the lower end. Now, there is a higher end, not even a slightly higher end, there's a notable higher end. And I think, considering, let's see, I'm going to low-key spoil myself a little bit. I'm going to see what these video sections are called. Intro, TV scaling, okay, Gauntlet TV Mark, comic scaling, Gauntlet comic Mark. Okay, so we're breaking down TV Mark. Yeah, TV Mark gets fodderized. I mean, he still has the massive speed advantage, but like, he literally does not clear Dragon Ball. He doesn't like clear Dragon Ball. He'd be like a mosquito punching at like full power Master Roshi and Goku and King Piccolo. He just doesn't clear. At least that's what I think. We'll see what Sal has to say. But think. Oh, the Annihilus scaling. There is a character. It's Annihilus and I think a bit of Space Racer. Apparently, Space Racer's Splagooter is either safe to be able to destroy planets or even stars at its full power. And obviously, Space Racer is not the strongest in the verse. Even his tech, while it's very valuable, it's not like the highest. So Viltrumite should upscale from this, or at least the average Viltrumite should be somewhat relative, though they can take damage from the weapons. And then Mark being a beyond average Viltrumite, same with Omni-Man and Thrag, who Mark is able to scale and damage to, especially by EOS. They should all be able to just upscale from Space Racer, so they could have either star levels or higher of attack potency and durability on top of their insane speed, and or what was the and Annihilus. Annihilus is apparently a character who like consumes star systems or destroyed them, something of that sort. And star systems, while it's debated on what that means, the lowest that is solar. And then you give that to Mark, because Omni-Man and Mark both would scale to Annihilus based on the battles the alternate Marks have with him. And obviously Mark is at least it seems like he's the strongest of all the alternate Marks, the prime ones. He is Mark Prime, essentially. So all the alternate ones that get summoned and he just beats down. He does scale 2 and or above, and I believe in one universe one of them just slaughtered Annihilus. I forget if Annihilus ever actually appears in the main run. Once again, I didn't actually do too much reading of Invincible. I read like some of the comics, but I didn't really do a full read. I just found Invincible interesting on a scaling front, because I like the idea of Viltrumites, and Viltrumites were commonly in discussion after the show got really popular. So I don't actually know off the top of my dome piece, but Star System, obviously Star System, and the thing is, the statement I believe that comes for Annihilus is like Star Systems, plural, so like multi-solar, and then Mark would scale. And then that gets him to like Cell. But he, once again, the main issue that he'd run into at that point is actually putting down Cell. And at that point, characters definitely have reached those stupid top-tier Omni-Man feat levels of speed. Like, undeniably at that point. You can fight off Lightspeed Dragon Ball in, like, early Z. But once you get past Namek, characters are moving way faster, like, in that massively faster than light tier plus range, just because of how many multipliers commonly get stacked. Like, especially if you say Raditz is light speed and just do simple math, the simple math difference between Raditz and full power Goku on Namek, even though we know power levels aren't necessarily linear, you can be only 2,000 stronger than somebody and absolutely blitz and dominate them. So we know power levels aren't linear, but even if you were to just do the division between Raditz, if we put Raditz at light speed, or even 50% the speed of light, and then Super Saiyan Goku on Namek, the difference is literally in the thousands. And then, of course, characters get infinitely stronger than that over the 3-year time skip, and then they get infinitely stronger than that in the month training before Cell. So they or the week that they got from Cell, or the 10 days actually. So then they do keep up with him. But thing is, though, Mark would probably have the power advantage on most of those characters. So he probably beat like Gohan and Goku and a majority of the Z fighters. He just struggled against Cell because he struggled to put him down. Like, Mark doesn't have anything to fully vaporize Cell, so a piece of Cell will pretty much always survive and just keep getting Zenkais and keep coming back. He may get a little bit tired, though, but, like, it's fine if Mark can't put him down. And then, I think no matter, I mean, there is, like, you go with the spawn skilling and take that spawn statement at face value. There's also that one weird statement where, like, I think Omni-Man was said to be equal to Superman by one of the creators, but everyone laughs at that. No one takes that seriously. But you do scale Omni-Man to Superman and then take current Superman, or whatever Superman was at the time of the statement. He does violate Dragon Ball. That's a video I may do one time. I may do Superman versus Goku, or like Superman versus Dragon Ball. He does violate. Comic Superman, he's dumb. He's dumb in the best way possible, but he definitely does violate. So you go, that's really the highest tier. Then there's the Spawn tier. Then there's the Annihilus multi-solar scaling. Then there's the Space Racer scaling. Then there's the Viltrum Planet Destruction scaling. Then there's the like anime, or not the anime show scaling. So at his highest, Mark clears, but that's like a crazy top line outlier that no one actually believes. At his midpoints, he may hard stop at Cell just because of Cell's matchup with him, but he definitely does not make it past the Buu Saga. He would have too many characters relative to him, like all the Super Saiyan 2s tiers and above, and he literally could not defeat Buu. There's nothing in Mark's arsenal that would allow him to defeat literally any version of Buu. The regeneration is way too good, way better than anything Mark has ever faced. And yeah, he doesn't even touch Super. And even like the super highballed Mark, depending on what spawn you're referencing, like even that like super crazy glaze spawn Mark wouldn't even touch. He would probably clear Buu Saga just because like his raw power to accidentally vaporize people with punches. But I'm trying to think. Yeah, he doesn't really touch Super, because Super, once again, when you get into that real like multiversal stuff and like Battle of Gods, and then characters get exponentially stronger by that in the anime. So like it really is rough. I'm sorry I spent so much time yapping about my version of hypothetical and thinking that it's nearly as long as the video itself. So let's not waste any more time. Let's hop right into Invincible versus Dragon Ball. How far can he go?
This video is sponsored by Surfshark.
I'm not. I'm not. Sorry. And that's the one that I'm gonna skip ads whenever I see my videos because I'm not sponsored. Let's see.
It raises a pretty natural question. How would they compare in combat?
I'm assuming that first question was like, or that first statement was like, Goku or Viltrumites and Saiyans have very similarities. They're combat-ready species with extreme survivability and extreme physical power. So how could they compare in combat? I think that's what he said. I ain't going back. Let's see. Oh wait, I muted by accident. Wait, no. We could do a video.
Viltrumites and Saiyans, but I've done other videos before where characters run through an entire gauntlet, trying to go through the entire story of...
Now, once again, it all depends on how this video does, because this is a Dragon Ball and Invincible video. I've covered Dragon Ball on the channel before, and it does. But if y'all would be interested in any of these, just let me know. Just let me know. Just let me know. I mean, obviously, I have very little context for the JoJo's one, but I do know a strange amount about JoJo's scaling. Don't ask me why. I accidentally fell down that rabbit hole too. I know nothing about Rick and Morty. I'll be completely honest. This is one that like I saw and I was like, man, I got nothing. Andy from Undead and Luck fame, I think I may have already watched this one, but even still, he's in a weird spot. But I think I could definitely cover that one. And Suguna, well, I'm something with JJK tuber myself, you know. Let's see.
Dragon Ball. So let's do the same here. We'll take Invincible himself. How far would he get in the story of Dragon Ball Z if he had to fight everyone? Let's go over some ground rules first. We're going to be using two versions of him. First, the TV version, and then once he taps out, we'll go to the comic version at the end of the story. Okay. And don't worry, there's not going to be major spoilers, but just in case you want...
Oh! I have major spoilers. My bad. For anyone who wanted to stick around and watch the video. I did major spoilers from around start, because I was just thinking of the scaling.
And to avoid that, I'll have my editor throw in a timestamp just so you can skip that.
Oh,
Thank you, Alex, in advance. We're going to scale him against the opponents of each saga and see how well he does against them. And at some point, the objective will basically become fighting, but some of the other arcs will have other objectives on top of that, so we'll give him those too. We'll assume he passes through an arc if he can both beat the enemies there and pass that objective. We're only going to hard stop him when he has no reasonable path to victory. Even if the chance is small, as long as there's a logical way to win, we'll say he moves on. So, since we're going to start with TV Invincible...
Ooh. Sorry, I keep hitting the mic. I gotta put it in a less, like, distracting spot. But I have a position directly in front of me so the audio is as clear as possible. Because I've noticed whenever I have it, like, slightly too far to the left or to the right, the audio sounds distorted because it comes in at a weird angle, especially considering I have the mic configured to just pick up me from the front. But if that's the case... Invincible can pull out some dubs he really shouldn't. Especially TV Invincible, because he should still have the Omni-Man feet scaling. Unironically, he could beat Raditz, even though he shouldn't be able to damage Raditz, if he's able to lift it, because Raditz isn't heavy. So he just tackles him into space, then Raditz dies. So like that's unironically a way that he could get past, actually, a lot of the Saiyan Saga. Once again, because the light speed scaling isn't that crazy in the Saiyan Saga just yet. Unless you highball Dragon Ball. So like, he could actually clear the Saiyan Saga by dragging the Saiyans into space. Because he can survive out there. They can. Let's see.
Let's begin scaling him. As of recording, right now Season 2 is finished, and Season 3 isn't out yet, but it is around the corner. By the time this video drops, there's probably going to be an episode or two of it, but if you're watching this later on in the year, that's why we're not covering.
See, I forgot. I saw the trailer for Season 3, but I never actually did end up watching it. I didn't actually watch any of the seasons of Invincible, by the way. I'm weird. I'm not a big TV show guy. I don't know why. I'm so random. Like I love long form content. Clearly, I literally do. I don't know. I can't tell you how many times I've rewatched Solid Saiyan's What Ifs and Carthu's Dojo's What Ifs. Like rewatched in full. They're full stories. I just put those on in the background sometimes. It's like a legendary, delicious, scrumptious white noise. But I don't know. Something about TV shows that never hit for me. Though I am weird because I am a pencil guy. I love animation. So I don't know why TV shows, especially even the anime kind, never hit. Though I will admit, the animation for Season 3 does look like it took a massive step up. Let's see.
During Season 3 here. It is also kind of perfect timing for an Invincible video. But before that, big thanks to Surfshark.
Oh, nope. Sorry, Salad.
Well, Mark's feats are kind of weird because...
That's the name of this channel, Salad Bar. But yeah, sorry, I'm hard, no. Nope, we ain't doing that. Let's see.
We're going to have to compare him to Omni-Man a lot, which does make it a little tricky. Let's start with speed. Yeah. He's going to be really fast compared to Dragon Ball characters, especially at this point in the story. Sure, later on in Dragon Ball, things are stupidly fast, but in the beginning of the story, characters really aren't that quick, and you'll see what I mean later on. Currently in the show, Mark's speed should be massively faster than light.
Yeah.
For one, he's able to fly to the moon really quickly, but that's just kind of a relativistic feat. The real impressive thing here is when we compare him to Omni-Man.
Yeah.
So when Mark and Nolan fought those Viltrumites, obviously they needed 3 people to take on Nolan alone. So these Viltrumites aren't on his level, but they're not too far off. Let's say they're equally strong, and if we really lowball them, we'll say since 3 Viltrumites were needed, that's 1/3 of Nolan's strength.
Even though, I mean, technically, you can still... It's weird, but they are relative to him, because they do damage to him. In fact, the one who everyone called Steve Harvey, he does break Nolan's back. Like, not in a freaky way, but it does just flat out, like, shatter his spine. Admittedly, while Nolan was off guard, but, like, Viltrumite durability typically doesn't lower. His smart atoms shouldn't have, like, shut down or anything. So being able to damage him does technically make them relative. And obviously, the line of scaling here would be these characters able to be somewhat relative to Nolan. If we do 1/3 of Nolan's strength, then Mark, who's also relative to these characters, and actually is able to dominate this Viltrumite in particular in Season 2, he very specifically would scale to just 1/3 of his father's travel speed feat. But even then, you could argue that travel feat is probably a non-focused and non-locked in Omni-Man. So like he really should actually scale higher than that speed feat in terms of his actual raw speed. Once again, the speed feat of crossing to, I believe, the Andromeda Galaxy alone in a week is still absurd. I know people always say, it took him a week. It does not matter. Do you know how far apart galaxies are? Do you know how big the universe is? You know how long it takes light to travel? It is still a crazy feat. Let's see.
So, 1 Viltrumite, 1/3 Nolan. And of course, Mark was able to fight one of them alone. Yep. So let's say Mark's relative to one of them. So to keep things simple, we're going to assume he's 1/3 of Nolan's strength right now. Trust me, this will save a lot of headache later on. Yeah. It's not really an accurate estimate, but it's a good guesstimate to work with. So as we know, Nolan could fly throughout space pretty quickly. Most impressively, the fact that he flew to Thraxa, which is a couple galaxies away from Earth. And there's no...
Oh, couple galaxies. So see, it's even couple galaxies. I forgot the feat. There's this specific statement about which galaxy it's in, or like which star cluster it's in, and people calc it from that. And it is unfortunately kind of the best speed feat. Like notably, without the reason Invincible kind of gets clipped viciously a bit later, even in the comics, is because the quality is 1080p. Okay, so they're just like lower quality render. But well, no, I'm pausing it in motion, so I'll probably focus up. And actually, that's the thing. I want to get better at editing so I can figure out how to do stuff like this. But the thing about Invincible is, unlike a Dragon Ball series where there are multipliers, and then essentially even arc by arc, once they stop giving you power levels, you can kind of take feats and then stack multipliers on top of it. People typically discourage calc stacking, but Dragon Ball is one of the few where we just do that because like it's actually built into the universe. So we don't just say, oh well, base Frieza star level, and then the other Frieza is this star level, or Dwarf Star. We actually get Frieza like large star level at a low ball, or not low ball, but like at a mid ball in his final form, because we literally just multiply his power number by the other power number. After we just divide the 120 million or the 60 million he usually fights at in final form by the 530,000 he was at. Even though power levels are on linear, so technically he should be even stronger. But all that aside, we don't like talk about the fact that you could definitely argue like a solar system tier level for the Frieza arc, and if we go with the Dwarf Star feat in full context and we just multiply that by the actual power levels, even assuming power levels were linear. So like that's the thing, Dragon Ball has those numbers. The Daizenshu, is it the Daizenshu or is it the Super Exciting Guide? I forget which one, but essentially the Super Saiyan multipliers, they're like the perfect guide for the series. So okay, SS2 Gohan and Cell, capable of destroying a solar system and possibly more, depending on how you interpret some guidebook statements or external statements. Okay, then characters are as strong as that Gohan, such as Super Saiyan 2 Majin Vegeta and Super Saiyan 2 Goku, or even stronger. So they're solar system level and Super Saiyan 2, and then you just multiply that by 4 because we have that for the Super Exciting Guys. Like there are levels to it that just makes it a whole lot easier to just stack and stack and stack and stack and stack. And that's why Super gets so stupid so quickly, because you have these insane numbers. You have like Super Saiyan God being a beyond fusion level boost according to the narrative. And fusion is sometimes described as A times B, but Super Saiyan God was just beyond that. Vegito, Super Saiyan 3 couldn't clear that, so Vegito being an A times B multiplier of Goku and Vegeta, times the 400 times multiplier for Super Saiyan 3 was enough to fight Beerus at all, but Goku gets Super Saiyan God and thinks that's enough. There are debates about ritual God versus non-ritual God, but just for being basic here. So then you have essentially God being a fusion tier multiplier on top of all the feats that he performs against Beerus while in God. Then he absorbs God into his base. Specifically in Super Anime, there's debate more than I did in the manga, but it seems to be in the manga as well. He absorbs Super Saiyan God, the macrocosm shattering power in base, and then he can stack that same Super Saiyan God multiplier on that universal base. that beyond fusion tier multiplier. Or even just the basic 50 times or 100 times for Super Saiyan 2 or 400 times for Super Saiyan 3. And then we just know he gets way stronger than that because of later instances we see in Super where he like could viciously diff his self, his like Super Saiyan God self, or his Super Saiyan God after absorbing Super Saiyan God into base self in base. And then the tournament power gets even crazy. Like, once again, the reason Dragon Ball gets so insane, especially by Super, is because we have those solid multipliers, and it just keeps going and rising and rising and rising. Invincible, the reason why a lot of people don't really rate it too highly outside of like crazy speed feat, is because it doesn't really get to any crazy speed feats outside of that, or get to any power feats in the manga. A lot of the, or not in the manga, in the comic, and even in the comic, that's the thing, and that's why it's kind of hard to glaze the verse too much until you start pulling out those external materials. And of course, you know, we're scalers, we'll always go to external materials, but even then those external materials are heavily debated because of things that happen in the manga. Or not, I keep saying manga because I'm so used to saying manga. Things that happen in the comic, like 3 of the strong, well, no, Thaddeus isn't really a strong Viltrumite, but, you know, a pretty powerful Viltrumite. But Omni-Man, one of the stronger Viltrumites, and Mark, his very strong son, could die to a planetary explosion? Even if it's Dwarf Star level. Surely you can't actually be Spawn tier or Star System destroying tier if you're that weak. And it's not like, and once again, unlike with Dragon Ball, we never really get solid quantifiers for how much their damage amps actually amp them. Like, we don't have a comparison. We see Goku get a Zenkai and go from 90,000 to 3 million. We have a solid number for how much that Zenkai helped them, and he clearly gets even stronger Zenkais later on. But despite having a very similar Zenkai system, Viltrumites never get a quantification for that. Mark never gets 10 times or 50 times or 100 times stronger. Not on command or just stated. Though there are moments like when Mark's strength gets measured, they show this in the Season 3 trailer, where he's like lifting way more, and then you can calc that for how much his strength is increased. But that's lifting strength versus combat strength. Sorry, I'm going down a complete rabbit hole. Let me let Sally keep talking.
Not an exact time span or an exact distance for this. Plus, he didn't directly fly from Earth to there.
We do have the week. I think the week is a solid thing. I think that was hard confirmed. It was a week. Though the distance thing, especially if I am forgetting it wasn't the Andromeda Galaxy. But even still, doing that in any time that was less than forever is still massively faster than light. Just because of how far apart galaxies are. No matter what. Even if you don't go with the week time frame. If you try to lowball to infinity and say it took Omni-Man, even though he has a kid and becomes king on this planet, even if you want to say from when Mark saw him in Season 1 to when Mark sees him in Season 2, that's how long it took him to get there, it would still be a massively hypersonic feat. Or no, massively faster than light feat. Massively faster than light plus feat. Even if took that long. Because it has to be shorter than that. And we know it didn't actually take that long. So, yeah. Fun fact, look at how long a light year is. And then look up how long it takes for light to travel between galaxies. It's why a lot of the things we see in the sky, a lot of the stars we see in the sky, are likely just a bunch of dead stars. Because it takes forever for their light to reach us. Bada bing, bada boom. Let's see.
He just kind of flew around aimlessly along the way. So really he should be faster than what I'm about to say, but to get the lowest estimate for this, let's assume he flew directly from Earth to Thraxa. And let's say it took a month. So Thraxa is a couple galaxies away. Again, a very vague estimate, especially with how big that is. But the closest galaxy to us is 25,000 light years away. And he definitely flew way farther than that, in about a month. So like on the really low end, if we assume he flew 25,000 light years over the course of a month, that would mean he's 300,000 times the speed of light. And I cannot...
And that's a lower number from what I've seen before. I've seen, and I feel like that actually even is, because multiple galaxies is crazy. Because, like you said, the closest galaxy, the Andromeda, is about that distance away. But then there's a really large distance between that galaxy and the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Like, we say, because so many characters in fiction are like universal, multiversal, complex multiversal, like, we forget to think of the scale of our own creation. But it's huge. Gargantuan.
I stress this enough, that's the lowest lowball because he didn't fly directly there, and that's using the estimate of one galaxy away. He flew multiple galaxies away. And so likely he's billions of times faster than the speed of light at this point.
Yeah.
His travel speed should also apply to his combat speed too, which applies to the other Viltrumites that kept up with him, which also applies to Mark. And even using that low estimate of saying Mark is only 1/3 as fast.
And once again, for those wondering, well, what do you mean? Should there be a difference between travel and combat speed? Alan the Alien. He's like the linking point. He fights at those speeds. And notably, He fights at his travel speeds, and Alien is also known to travel literally between galaxies in order to do his job. And he fights at that level, at those speeds. He's stated to do that, I believe, in an external guide or even in the comic itself. And I think they even say it in the show. I think they mentioned it in the show. So yeah, that is actually just a thing. Like this universe is insanely cracked speed-wise. Like it blitzes a whole bunch of verses just on that 1 feat alone. Or just like the general way the universe works. Space Racer is a really fast character. Battle Beast, at least in combat speed, is a really fast character. Mark, Omni-Man, anyone who scaled to them. Like there are a bunch of just real... This is a verse of sleeper speedsters. You never think about it because they really draw attention to it. But that 1 feat alone, is speedy. And once again, unlike the power scaling, and by power scaling I mean like their raw power stat, this basically never gets contradicted. In fact, it gets exemplified on more when Mark, at a certain point in the comic, is under stress, and he literally says, "Fine, I'll go there myself," and he literally leaves a spaceship that is capable of traveling across galaxies in short times, and blitzes it back to Earth. So, like, he's just fast, real speedy. But let's see.
As is him. Like, come on. If he's really millions of times faster than the speed of light, Mark being a third of that is still incredibly impressive. Now let's go on to attack power and durability. This one's a bit harder to gauge because, while I know the comics do have a feat that I'll get to later on, in the TV show so far, destructive feats are a little bit weird to scale, especially with the fact that we're going to have to scale Mark to Nolan again. So let's go over him pretty briefly. So far in the show, we've seen Nolan rapidly destroy a civilization alone, and while we didn't actually get to see this, he told Mark that he stopped an asteroid as big as Texas before, which would make for a really impressive lifting feat because Texas...
Whoa! Salad! What the... Well, then again, no, he does curse on the show. I'm so used to... Like, darn, I'll be at the language. I have to hit the language on that one. Editing me. At least it's at a nice even time. 31 minutes editing me. Wake up, buddy. May need to take notes. But that completely gets me off guard. He actually mentioned that in a video he did. He released it around December of last year. He recorded it in September, though, because Sal's saying, man, he's my icon in terms of, like, pre-prepping. I'm trying to get better at that now. Like, in fact, at least currently at the time of recording, there are 5 videos available for members and patrons early, exclusively. And they're going to be more. In fact, they're going to be, like, depending on how much recording I get done in this recording session, it's going to be, like, at least, if I'm good, if I'm solid, if I'm beefy, there's going to be, like, 20. And I'm just going to try and keep ahead of that backlog and just record. So I can be like Salad. Salad's like multiple months ahead. Like he finishes his what ifs fully, completely, editing, writing, recording, and all before he posts the first part, which is crazy to me, but still very impressive. And what was I going to say? Oh yeah, the asteroid side of Texas thing. He says destroyed it as well. Which means it may not just be a lifting feat, it may actually be an AP feat, because destroying something versus stopping something is different. It really depends, because in that scene, he shows we see Mark throw an asteroid back. So, Nolan says he destroyed it. But if we're following the theme of the scene, then he probably wouldn't have destroyed it, he would have just caught it, and then thrown it back. It really depends. But still, let's just say, the asteroid that life wiped the dinosaurs, which I forget what that's been calculated, but it's been like, it's a life wiper. It's not actually, like, planetary, though. But, like, it's actually a pretty... I think it's, like... I can't just look that up. I would have to double-check that. It actually is a pretty crazy feat. That rock wasn't actually that big. It was big. It was big. Like, the Gulf of Mexico is that rock, by the way. I'm pretty sure. But... Or, like, that's where it landed. Somewhere around there. Somewhere in that little area in the bottom part of the United States. That's where the rock that life wiped the planet did land. But it's smaller than Texas. Much smaller than Texas. And presumably being an asteroid, it was traveling at very fast speeds if it was going to impact Earth. So it is actually a pretty crazy feat. I forget, but the reason that I don't even think about it and didn't even mention it in the earlier scaling section I was talking about it is because apparently even when calced, it's just not as impressive as the feat from the comic. So, like, just ain't that good. But I think it actually is kind of necessary for show Mark, because like Salad mentions, there just really isn't much destruction in the show. Not yet. We'll see.
In his fights, he's using so much power that he's able to create explosions that can be visible from space, or vice versa, being visible on Earth from space. Also, when he fought Mark, he delivered a punch so powerful that it nearly destroyed a mountain, with Mark absorbing a lot of that impact. And that's one of his less impressive feats. So it's a little tough to say how destructive Nolan is at the moment, but at the absolute bare minimum, he would be small country level. And that's a low ball. I personally would place him around continental, if not even higher. Again, it's a little vague.
I think that's what I remember the calc being about for the. But I think it was more. I think that's what the life wiper for the dinosaurs was. I think for the Texas feat it's actually higher. I think it is like a multi-continental thing. It makes sense for Nolan to scale to. And 3 multi-continental people plus a destabilized core, that actually does also make sense. Let's see.
Vague trying to scale him here, but based on how effortlessly he does all these things, and the fact we don't have much more to work off beyond this, we'll place him at that level. Scaling current Invincible to him, we know Invincible's stronger than the Immortal right now. And Omni-Man's also considerably stronger than the Immortal, but he still was able to harm Nolan in their fight. So Mark is somewhere between those two, meaning he's strong enough to at least considerably harm Nolan. Not to mention, when he stops holding back or when he gets enraged, he gets even stronger. So for estimating Omni-Man's Continental, possibly even higher than that, let's say Mark is around large country level. And I'll be completely honest up front, if you don't agree with the scaling, it really will not make a difference for this video
because it doesn't do much. The thing is, I wonder if Sal is going to go with the idea that I said. Mark literally has to grab and drag people into space. And in original Dragon Ball, that's kind of weird. But, like, no one in original Dragon Ball is heavy enough to, like, stop Mark from just picking them up, grabbing them by the neck, and just flying up. Like, that's the only thing. But that's his only win con. It is literally BFR. It is literally the classic throw him into space plan. That's the only thing Mark can do for literally all that. Especially Show Mark, even with the crazy speed scaling, he's not harming many, if any, of the Dragon Ball cast. Post Roshi blowing up the moon and every other character in original Dragon Ball, from Goku to Kami to King Piccolo to Jr. or Piccolo Jr. as we know as the current Piccolo, like all of them upscale from that moon feat. And even at the highest end of what you could probably get Show Mark to, right? Like, let's be real generous and say that Show Mark upscaling from the like life wiping Texas Meteor feat is just as strong as his dad and like multi-continental or massively multi-continental. The difference between multi-continental and moon level is massive. But fun fact, just like with the Frieza feat that I mentioned earlier, the moon level feat, or Roshi completely making the moon disappear in one hit of his Kamehameha wave, isn't actually just moon level. It can actually be cocked like planetary. Same thing with Piccolo's beam that he does before Raditz arrives, or no, that he does after Raditz to blow up the moon to stop Gohan from rampaging. Neither of those are just moon level because they literally atomize and vaporize the moon in an instant. The amount of energy that takes is actually in like the small planet to planetary tiers. The only reason that's contradicted because like the Vegeta stuff, but even then, in the anime, we see Vegeta literally beam a planet with 2 fingers. So, and plus we know planet scale in the Dragon Ball universe is also different. Like, ultimately, Frieza and King Cold look at Earth as a small planet and say it wouldn't take any effort to wipe. Meanwhile, Vegeta was a much larger planet with a much higher gravity, and it was still easy for base Frieza to wipe. So, like, the raw power gap Mark is going to struggle with, but he could BFR people. And it's going to be a whole lot of murder, but like, as my comic fans know, Mark ain't due to that. But
because Dragon Ball has a huge jump in attack power right away, and you'll see what I mean as we get into that scaling. Typically at this point in the video I briefly would go over Mark's abilities, but there's not really much to cover. He's just really strong, he can fly,
he's a punch and kick merchant who can breathe in space. Well, not breathe in space, but he can survive in space. He has good survivability. That's it. He's a Mr. Left Right Good Night kind of guy, and that's not always the best, as we'll see in a whole universe of those kind of guys who also can shoot lasers. Let's see.
He can survive in space by holding his breath, and pretty much every other ability he has as a Viltrumite is something that Saiyans would have. He's like a light version of a Saiyan. He can grow in battle, he gets stronger with rage, and he can live pretty long, which doesn't really matter for this fight. One obvious
he can live very long. I forget how long the time skip is at the end of the series, but it is a while. He at least lives to the end of Eve's lifespan, and then she regens. But let's see.
Advantage is the fact that he doesn't have access to Ki here. We're just dropping him in the verse as is, and working with that. So now, let's actually begin the Gauntlet. Starting with the Pilaf gang. The objective here, hunt for the Dragon Balls before the Pilaf gang gets them, or at the very least, defeat the Pilaf gang. It goes without saying that this would be pretty easy for him. As long as he has a Dragon Ball radar, he'll be able to accomplish this pretty quickly, which might sound kind of tough, but I feel like Cecil would be able to at least work something up for him. But if he truly is working alone and he just knows he has to hunt for the Dragon Balls himself, well, even if he can't find them himself, stopping the Pilaf gang is going to be no problem.
Yeah.
Next, we move on to the 21st World Tournament. The objective here in this arc is to just win the tournament, and this is actually going to be tougher than you think. So for most of the tournament, he's going to be perfectly fine. He should even be fine defeating Goku here regardless of if he transforms. But believe it or not, Roshi would be the issue for him.
Oh yeah, because moon level Roshi. Yeah. Shoot, yeah, that's the thing. I forgot. That says this early. Yeah, he may not even be Goku. Ironically, if you think Goku skills Roshi at all, and Roshi without the Kamehameha is at even a fraction of power is comparable to Roshi, then he may not be Goku because Goku is just that strong and durable. The only thing is though, I actually kind of disagree with Salad here. If the goal is to just win the tournament, he can just ring out Roshi. Roshi's very, very strong, but he's not immovable. He can just grab Roshi or Jackie Chan, because I don't know who Roshi is. I don't see Roshi on my screen. I see Jackie Chan. He can literally just grab Roshi by the hair and just throw him out the ring. So he could technically, unironically, Mark could still win here because this isn't like a battle to the death kind of thing. But even then, he really, I'm not kidding. Mark gets very far with his speed scaling and throwing him into space. But in this case, he doesn't have to throw the old man into space. He just needs to throw him out of the ring. We'll see.
The thing is, Mark greatly outspeeds him, and this wouldn't be a death match here, so it's not like Roshi would try to kill him. I think he could actually find multiple ways to knock him out of the ring. But Max Power Roshi with a Kamehameha can destroy the moon, so pretty quick into this gauntlet, we found someone who's physically stronger than Mark. Thankfully, he's also way slower than him. Like, the speed isn't even comparable here.
Yeah.
And that's full power Roshi, who has to chart up a Kamehameha as well. He can't just casually do that. As his regular self, Mark defeats him pretty easily. So specifically for TV Mark, there's already someone who might be stronger than him. This will obviously change once we get to the comic scaling. Next is the Red Ribbon arc.
Really?
Well, once again, this is pretty easy. The first few arcs of Dragon Ball start out pretty weak in terms of where everyone scales. Speed-wise, no one stands a chance, and in terms of power, no one in this arc is going to be stronger than Max Power Roshi.
Yeah.
This is kind of the perfect task for him here. I feel like defeating the Red Ribbon army would be really quick and really easy for him. So
It's actually pretty normal. He does it all the time.
simply just fly around the base really fast, destroy everything, and that's that. Even people like Blue, Black, or Tau wouldn't be an issue for him. Now here's where things get more interesting. The 22nd World Tournament. The objective here, once more, just win. So Mark still has a major speed advantage here, but it's hard to say he's going to win. First of all, Goku and Tien were above Roshi's max power by this point.
Yeah.
We're assuming Tien's his main threat here, and he's going to be moon level without wearing himself out like Roshi going full power. Tien at this point is a much more brutal fighter. So, of course, there's no killing allowed here, but he's probably not going to hold back against Mark. He'll beat him up. Not that Mark's not used to that. Tien's going to be considerably stronger than him, but Mark's still going to be greatly faster than him, to the point where there's no way Tien could even hit him. Assuming speed was equal here, Tien would beat his no doubt.
Damn! Yeah, he's way too. He's way. But then again, I don't now remember. But then again, I think I'll admit the whole language thing only pops up because of like the content creator side of me. I'll admit I do listen to content where people do have looser tongues. Let's say. So I guess I zoned it out. But since I have to always go back later in the future for editing purposes and just cut it out for my version of the video, my brain always is like less tapped in. So it is nice. Solid. He has a really good tenor to his voice, and it just rolls off so easily that I've even missed some, like because I've hit languages before, but then people will be like, "Pencil, you missed this one in this reaction video." I was like, oh, "No." Because sometimes I get just too locked in. But I was focused enough to get that one. Let's see.
Really carried by his speed at this point. And just like Tien, he can also fly. By the way, this all applies if he's fighting Goku just as well. But Tien's a more fitting opponent here, so that's what we're going with. The gap in power isn't so massive.
But the thing is, once again, because it is a tournament setting, and Tien can't hit him, he grabs Tien by the pants and throws him out. There's never really been outside of Magetta, who's like confirmed to be really, really heavy. There's never really been a thing in Dragon Ball where the more raw ki and power you have, the heavier you get. That's never actually been a part, despite that typically being how that would work in the real world. Like if you had enough energy inside you to destroy the universe, you would collapse the universe and of yourself. Like the sheer mass inside you would destroy everything. But in Dragon Ball, it doesn't matter. You are literally like still just your regular weight. So Tien goes to punch Mark. Mark looks at it in slow motion, grabs Tien by the pants, and just throws him out the ring. Same thing with Goku. Then they lose. That's the thing. He doesn't have to. He does not have to kill. He doesn't even have to interact with him. He just needs to win the tournament by just straight, and he can do it. We'll see.
That he has no chance of hurting Tien, and if you were to highball Mark and say he's like multi-continental here, which I think is a really high highball.
It's not too unreasonable. It is. I mean, well, for show Mark, it actually kind of is. I ain't gonna lie to you, but still, it wouldn't be enough. Like the gap is massive. I think that's what he's about to say.
At least then he could probably even harm Tien, but even just using the estimate that we had before, he still has other ways to catch Tien off guard. Definitely a ton of ways to speed blitz him too and knock him out of the ring before he even gets to his full power.
Yep.
So since he has multiple paths to victory here, we're gonna say he still moves on, although he's not really gonna make it far. The next arc would be King Piccolo. The obvious objective here is beat King Piccolo and all his sons. So Mark still.
Now here's the thing. If he's not allowed to kill Piccolo, he loses because he can't do damage to Piccolo. but if he like doesn't have Kami on the ring to him, be like, wait, please, he's important. Don't kill my other half. Mark's gonna be like, okay, this guy's really tough. Throw him into space because Piccolo can't survive out there. He wouldn't be able to damage Piccolo at all. But once again, it's the whole grab him by the shirt and throw him into space. That's how TV Mark can still hypothetically get a dub. But what did I say right at the start? Especially TV Mark, but arguably, once again, I'm interested to see where he scales Comic Mark, because I feel like even Comic Mark is going to struggle to get out of Dragon Ball, at least in terms of raw power. Speed-wise, he's still good. He's still very, very good. Speed-wise, he's good till Namek. And late Namek, too. I'd say late Namek is when Mark's speed is like, oh, okay, now you're just relative, buddy. Now characters have caught up to you, especially with like the anime scaling, with Goku like dodging meteors in space, in base, while presumably suppressed, trying to fake like there are many anime speed feats that like compare to Nolan's speed feat. In fact, it's like a direct comparison, because we know Namek is in a completely different galaxy, and the ship that Goku's flying in is able to get there in 6 days. So when you calc that, we have a solid number for that. So when you calc that distance between, just once again, the closest galaxy to us, assuming the Earth is in the Milky Way and then Namek is in the Andromeda, even though I think like in some guidebooks they say like the Earth is on like the edge of the universe and like Namek is in like the middle. Like there are different distances, but even at the lowest end, Mark's speed gets canceled out by like base Goku, start of Namek, or not start of Namek, but like mid Namek. His speed advantage, and then his power advantage is non-existent. He doesn't have a power advantage. He just dies. People can keep up with him and actually hit him this time, and the whole classic throw him into space just won't work. Unless you really highball Mark's speed. Let's see.
Still doesn't have the power to outright kill Piccolo or even some of his sons, because they're stronger than the previous opponents.
Yeah.
By this arc, the strongest fighters are beyond 22nd World Tournament Goku and Tien, who are already above Roshi, who is already a Moonbuster. And unlike a tournament, this is a death match. These people are trying to kill him. So speed blitzing them and knocking them out of the ring isn't going to work here. Granted, he will be really hard to kill with his speed advantage because, well, he's going to be hard to hit in general. But he won't be able to harm his opponents either. One way he could beat his opponents is just by grabbing onto them and then dragging them out into space.
There it is! There it is! I know, I was waiting for it, child. I was waiting for it. If all else fails, throw him into space. They'll probably die. Let's see.
Space, where he could survive, but his opponent can't. But I think now might be a pretty appropriate time to move on to comic Invincible, who's stronger than the TV counterpart at the moment. Now we'll enter into spoiler territory for the comics, and again, it's not going to be massive spoilers, but if you want to skip it, you could just look at the chapters on the video below and go through the conclusion part. But if you read the comic or just don't care about the spoilers, let's get into that. As for speed, in the comic he's going to be faster than where he was in the show, obviously. Like one impressive example of speed here is that Nolan was able to fly 65 million light years in 2 weeks, going from Earth to the Virgo supercluster, which is way more impressive than his last feat that we discussed in the speed section, which was...
I thought those were the same feat. I think that's the same, because whether through some kind of cosmic destiny or mere luck, I'll never know, but I found this world within a week of leaving Earth. Yeah, this is the feat. This is the feat. The Virgo supercluster, yeah. And I forget... what galaxy is the Virgo supercluster in? Oh, Virgo supercluster is a massive system of several hundred bright galaxies, including the Virgo cluster, Virgo supercluster. Okay, so yeah, that is the feat. That is the feat. Yeah, that is that feat. I mean, because once again, I actually don't think the verse actually gets too much faster. It doesn't really upscale from this feat any further, because like there are no more feats impressive as this one. But maybe Sal's right, and I'm thinking of a completely different feat. I feel like this is the same thing, because he's referencing going to the bug planet. I believe this panel is even from the little bug planet arc when he's talking to Margaret how he piped down a bug. I think. Let's see.
It's already really impressive to begin with, and end of comic Mark is comparable to or beyond that in speed. Not that it really makes much of a difference though, because he already does significantly outspeed Dragon Ball at this point.
Yeah, Dragon Ball he blitzes violently, and the thing is, once you get to even the lower end interpretations of the Viltrum Destruction feat, and you split it between the 4 characters, he would be strong enough. I mean, once again, unless you like go above and beyond for the Moon atomization feat for Roshi, and then like calc that up and then upscale from there, then he technically still would be outpowered until you start getting to the real high variations of Mark. And that's why I'm interested to see how high does Salad go with his comic scaling. Does he just stop at the Viltrum Destruction feat and go with like the average Moon to possible large planetary calcs? Or does he go with some of that external guidebook goodness, if you know what I'm talking about? Let's see.
Sure, if we're comparing him with Super, then that's a different story, but at this point in Dragon Ball's story, no one's even close to a fraction of their speed at the moment.
Yeah.
Attack powers where things get more interesting, because obviously that's a little closer. And unlike in the TV show, Mark does have more actual destructive feats for himself, and they're easier to quantify. Mm-hmm. The most famous feat of his is him destroying Viltrum. So what we know about Viltrum is that it's pretty similar in size to Earth, and of course Mark didn't destroy it alone, Nolan was there and so was Thetis. To make things easier, it's reasonable to assume that all 3...
And also, space racer. The reason this feat is like, especially when people try to be like, oh, Mark, he's literally invincible. The reason why a bunch of people clown on this feat is they didn't just do the three of them themselves. It's also a space racer's gun destabilizing the core of the planet. And remember, a big plot point about Viltrum is that it was already an unstable planet. It wasn't the most stable planet at all. So it was already a planet on the verge of destruction. Then it was put even further on the verge of destruction by a space gun. And then it took 3 people to destroy it. And then the explosion would have, the process of destroying it still would have killed them. That's why a lot of people kind of clown on the Invincible verse. It's a verse with great speed, poor power. And typically a lot of verses are the opposite. Or not the opposite, but they'll have like really good hacks, but maybe low speed stats and low power stats, something like the JJK universe. Or maybe they'll have really high power stats, but like, iffy or so-so speed feats. I can't really think of one on the top of my head. I say 7 Deadly Sins, but 7 Deadly Sins has some weird speed feats in it itself. But like, hacks-wise, people don't think of the 7 Deadly Sins verse all too much, even though it's a verse filled with crazy hacks itself. It has reality warpers. So like, it's hard to say 7 Deadly Sins perfectly there. But there are definitely like cases where here, there, up, down, left, right. Like, there are definitely a bunch of different ways and places and paces that verses can balance out. And Invincible is one of those verses that, even with that feat, it really is. It's a speed merchant. And speed can win you a lot of fights if your opponents can't breathe in space. But like a lot of the more popular characters, and especially the characters that Invincible and Omni-Man specifically, and Thrag from Invincible fame get put up against, they all typically breathe in space. Or like they don't need air. Like I'm thinking of any character from DC or Marvel that they typically be put up against. And even a lot of alien species, like they just all breathe in space. That's why the Saiyans are so weird. They can destroy actual multiverses, but heaven forbid you put them underwater. Or you take them out of an atmosphere. Oh no, you'd think in all their wisdom they probably would have figured out a way to at least get around that, but still not yet. It's still a weakness. Let's see.
3 of them put in equal effort, so think of it like this: each of them had the power to destroy 1/3 of Earth, at least at this point in the story. And he also grows above this later on too.
Yep, he does. Okay, so we aren't going to go with the increased gravity. So let's see where Cell says the scales.
So on the low end, it's pretty widely accepted the small planet level based on that feat, and I also think it's reasonable to push him to planetary, because by the end of the story, he's stronger than that.
Yeah, I agree.
And when you think about it, he's only going to need like 3 times the strength to actually do that alone. So
Yeah. Okay, I mean, I'm fine with that. Once again, I was even fine with him going up to large planetary, and because it looks like we're already at the end of this section. We aren't going with any of that extra guidebook stuff. Yeah, Mark is still cooking. He barely. Even EOS Mark, he lives and breathes and dies by throwing him into space, but then he hard stops dynamic. He really hard stops dynamic, and specifically Frieza, where throwing him into space will not work, and characters will be at relative to him in speed. So, yeah, Mark, he doesn't get too far. He clears Dragon Ball, and Dragon Ball's pretty big. Not many verses out there clear Dragon Ball. Very few verses clear Dragon Ball. But Mark did pretty good getting dynamic. That's farther than a lot of other people got. A lot of other people. Let's see.
So, he's small planetary, possibly to the level of an Earthbuster by now, which would just be regular planetary. When comparing to Dragon Ball, we're going to have to use these terms like small planet tier, things like that, just because we can't get a direct one-to-one comparison like by using power levels or something. Alright, now back to the Gauntlet. As for the King Piccolo arc, well, now he mogs King Piccolo completely. His speed was already way above him before, and now with his comic scaling, Piccolo can't even hurt him. He could one-tap everyone here with pretty low effort. Moving on, the 23rd World Tournament. And pretty much the same thing would happen here.
Yeah,
the objective in this tournament would be to win, which would be just beating Piccolo Jr. And from King Piccolo to here, there wasn't really a massive power jump, so pretty much the same outcome as the last one. A pretty easy win for Mark. Now where things get fun is where we go into the Saiyan saga, so we'll split this into 2 parts. First, the Raditz section of it, and then the Vegeta and Nappa section of it. First section.
He just barely clears because he gets to kill the Saiyans. He gets to kill the Saiyans, and they can't survive in space. Even, like, once again, there are definitely ways to get, like, Raditz and Nappa and Vegeta all to planetary just by upscaling from previous feats of certain characters, and, like, how much massively stronger Raditz is than them. And then, obviously, Nappa and Vegeta are from them. And, obviously, there's the anime feat of the Vegeta just pointing a planet away, which is infinitely better than Mark's feat. So, there is that. But, Big Butt, Booty Butt Cheeks, they still need to breathe. And even if their tails aren't weaknesses for the Elite Saiyans, doesn't matter. They can be grabbed by the tail and thrown into space. Especially Vegeta, he's real light. Just yeet that man into the atmosphere, out of the atmosphere. He dies. Let's see.
Objective: stop Raditz. Here, Mark actually might have a challenge. Sure, he still greatly outspeeds Raditz. Actually, greatly is an understatement, because by now Raditz is really only brushing upon relativistic speed. Even highballing Dragon Ball speeds at this point, the highest estimates are barely into the faster than light range.
Yeah, and it's based on like upscaling certain stuff. Well, I mean, it's not absurd, and in fact, Raditz has gotten a lot of hype recently, just in general, like early Dragon Ball has, because like there are definitely ways to. Oh, I have 10% left. Okay, I need to finish this video now. Okay.
Meanwhile, you have Mark, who's over 1,000,000 times faster than light here, so not even comparison. You might also be thinking, Raditz is kind of weak, so Mark should be able to win here too, right? Well, while Raditz does seem weak, by this point in Dragon Ball, he's actually a pretty good opponent for Mark in terms of strength. Suppressed Piccolo with weights on can casually destroy the moon with one attack, and Raditz is obviously multiple times beyond that level. The rule of thumb that people like to go by is that a power level of 10,000 is required to destroy a planet. But that's in a guidebook and not in the main story, and it's also relatively inconsistent with the series too. Trust me,
it is horrifically inconsistent.
Going somewhere with this. Here's a good way to look at it. Piccolo with a power level of around 322 blew up the moon with little effort. Roshi with a lot of effort while being a lot weaker than Piccolo at that point was able to do this too. And again, I don't really like using sources outside the main series, but I guess if you want a more accurate comparison, Roshi's power level...
Okay, so that's especially why he's not going into any of the external comic stuff. Okay, that makes sense.
...was listed at around 180, specifically at the point when he did blow up the moon. Meanwhile, there's Raditz. His power level is around 1500, which is nearly 5 times beyond Piccolo and over 8 times beyond Roshi's if that power level was accurate. Not to mention, power levels aren't always linear, so that multiplier is probably even higher. If you want proof for this, Bulma's power level in the main story was listed as 12. If power levels were truly linear, that means she's only a 12th as strong as Piccolo, who's a casual moonbuster by this point, which would mean 12 Bulmas could blow up a moon. Obviously, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Or like the farmer with the shotgun, for example, his power level was 5, making him about a 60th as strong as Piccolo in terms of raw power level, which would mean he's 1/60th moonbuster. That doesn't work. There's way more examples you could use for this, but point being, power levels aren't linear. So on the surface, you might think, okay, Raditz is about 5 times as strong as suppressed Piccolo, but really he should be stronger than that given how power levels go. So you can't really use power levels to gauge destructive feats. One of the whole points of Toriyama doing power levels is that they're not really accurate. So using them for scaling isn't really great either. Now, the point of that tangent was, I think Raditz is a planetary level fighter. Given the fact that he's many times beyond a moonbuster, and the whole thing about a 10,000 power level being needed to destroy...
That's kind of been the upscale for Raditz, yeah. Where before, people weren't happy about that because they're like, well, Vegeta thinks it's impressive to... He doesn't think it's impressive to destroy Earth. He's just like, I'm gonna do it, and you can't stop me. I'll suffer. So, like, just the scaling of Dragon Ball is consistent for him to be planetary. And especially considering it almost arc by arc, what Toriyama does is he just raises the power tier. So if we were dealing with Moonbusters in Dragon Ball, and we leap to the next arc with aliens, they're going to be planetary. Then we leap to the next arc with more aliens, they're going to be star level. And we leap to the next arc with android aliens, they're going to be solar system. And we leap to the next arc, and then they're galaxy level. Then we leap to the next arc, and then they're universal. Like, Dragon Ball is actually pretty linear, and there's like its raw power gaps. But of course, the gap between Moonbuster and planetary is huge, and then the gap between Planet Buster and Star Level is huge. So like it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, the amount of power that they go through. Let's see.
Destroy a planet isn't really accurate. This also doesn't even take into account the fact that he could turn into a Great Ape and get 10 times stronger than before. Although, Mark is still going to win here. The power should be close enough where he can be fine in this fight, and he still has the huge speed advantage. But I think by this point of the story, Mark's actually facing people that are around his level of strength. Of course, he could still rely on the strategy of just grabbing Raditz and dragging him into space and killing him that way. That could still work. But in terms of raw strength, he's going to start to meet his match here, and not to mention, he's not going to have access to key attacks and things like that. Now we move on to the next part of the Saiyan saga, Vegeta and Nappa. And I guess the Cybermen as well. Now, Nappa and Vegeta are obviously planetary. Unlike Raditz, where it's a little bit vague and you can kind of argue against that, these two are solidly planet level. And I'm not saying that because of that filler scene of Vegeta destroying Planet Arlia.
Oh, okay.
It's just that basic scaling would put them at this point.
That's
not to mention the fact that Vegeta was about to blow up Earth towards the end of the arc anyways. So they're unambiguously planetary level, but significantly slower than Mark still. The thing is, unlike Raditz, since they're stronger to begin with, if either of them goes Great Ape, they would be too strong for Mark to even harm. However, if he did know to go for their tail and cut it off, that
he could still unironically throw them into space. Neither of them are as heavy as a Texas meteor. He throws them into space. Even Great Ape Nappa and Great Ape Vegeta, he throws them into space.
Could work, but only if he actually knew about that. And I can't state this enough, Mark's speed advantage here is still insane. Unless Cecil backs him up here and gives him the info to cut off the tail, or like he just finds out due to dumb luck, he can't win. The way I'd see the fight go is that he's not going to blow up the planet, but the Saiyans definitely would try and do that. Not that it would kill Mark, but in the worst case, they could threaten to destroy the planet, then get in their spaceships and leave. And Mark could still try the whole dragging them into space thing, but it would be kind of hard considering they overpower him and can resist his strength pulling him there. They wouldn't be able to hit him.
Maybe. I don't know. Once again, it's really... I mean, you definitely could argue the throw him in the space thing stops working, but like, I could still see it happening. Because, like, we know in Dragon Ball, if you are caught off guard by something, and Mark would still be, like, literally multiple perception tiers above them, before they even realize what's happening, before they power up at all, he could very quickly throw them into space. Especially considering in order to resist and start, by the time their brains process Mark dragging them into space, they're already there. Because for them to resist it, outside of their own weight, they would literally need to be flying against him, his pulling speed. But he's so much faster than himself at this point that you can just throw him into space. But then he gets dynamic. And then that doesn't work anymore. But I'm fine with him stopping here. It's earlier than I thought that Sal was going to go, but still, it makes sense.
So even though they're stronger than him, he's still way too fast to hit, at least with a single directional attack. Ki could be omnidirectional. Both Vegeta and Nappa at this point have attacks that have a wide range. Plus, they can both use telekinesis to some extent. So even if they're too slow to attack him physically, they have a ton of ways to get around that with Ki, and at least in Vegeta's case, telekinesis. Like, look at Dirty Fireworks, he's able to use that. So at best, Mark could end this in a draw. Basically just outlast them long enough and probably run away. So he's not necessarily going to die here, but he's also not really going to be able to kill them. Unless he blows up the planet, which is something he obviously wouldn't do. Mark in this case is the unstoppable force, and Vegeta and Nappa are immovable objects. And I know his speed is so insane that, purely from a speed standpoint, Mark would be able to contend with people later on in Dragon Ball Z and even the beginning of Super. But in terms of raw strength, he's outclassed.
Not the beginning of Super. Not even end of Dragon Ball. Nope. Like I said, that I disagree with Solid. He peaks at Namek. He peaks at Namek once again. But then again, that's based on the anime scaling. Maybe with the manga, you can definitely go with a different idea. Like, especially by the anime scaling, if you include some of the filler, it is. But you know, anime canon is anime canon. He gets violated by the Namek saga. He does not touch. He doesn't touch. At least the way he scaled him here, he does not touch. Even with that speed feat, he does not touch Namek. Because Namek is dumb fast.
Fast by the time he meets Raditz. And unlike the fighters in Dragon Ball, he doesn't have the same variety of moves that they have. So I think it's kind of fair to stop Mark here, because if we keep him going, the best he'll do is just fly away from everybody. So he's not necessarily going to die in these fights, but he's not going to win them. But still, it's pretty impressive that he makes it this far, and who knows, maybe the TV show will give him better feats and he can go even farther than that. But at least as of now, TV Mark can make it to the 22nd World Tournament, and comic Mark can probably make it up to Raditz, although things will start getting really tough really quickly. The best thing working in his favor is the fact that he can survive in space for a bit, but obviously that won't matter once he starts fighting aliens that can breathe in space, like Frieza for example. Not to mention, he can't breathe in space, he could just hold his breath in space and survive as long as that lasts. So technically he can't just live in space forever. That will only work for so long. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. As usual, I know it's a power scaling video, so keep it civil. But anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on my next video.
Welcome to Universe. We're getting off that. But WWW video, sorry. Worthy video. It's Salad Sam. Or Salad Bar. He always cooks. But I'm going to end up getting out of here quick. My camera's on 10% or dying. So thank you so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave space throw into. It's a weird version of throw in space. Leave space throw into in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do want to have a Patreon down below where you can support me for as low as $1, get 1 no month. Things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. So those perks include the live reactions you have this year's time to review, and variations of all my videos, and if you become a $20 patron or a $20 member, you can order whatever video you want. Also, I do a link to my Ko-Fi in the description down below. You can drop 5 beans for a short video, 25 beans for a long video, or any beans at all. Any support is always greatly appreciated. Now, I'd like to thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Bag on the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our sketch tier members: Greyhound, Eternal Flame, Red Wolf 4765, Astro, Super Flame 0, Glacier, XZ, G Prosper, Zeta, and Brandon Payne. Then I'd like to give a little thank you to our line art tier patrons: Sean, Midnight Lord 21, Kevin, Encarnacion, and A+A. And then I'd like to give a huge thank you to our Ink tier members: Fine, Austin Wimberly, Euchiha, Yuki Ally, and Carlo Alaimo. Then I'd like to give a gargantuan thank you to our digital art tier members: J Warrior and AZ Void. Then I'd like to give another gargantuan thank you to our colored art tier patron: Waki Minoz, and Idemokami. Then I'd like to give a final legendary top of the line thank you to our That Guy with a Pencil tier patron, the glorious king, Calvin Elder.